All right, hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you have not seen these videos before, welcome back. If you have, my intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. This is going to be an eclectic video with some light language, a little bit of sharing of some, I call it an energy update, but oftentimes an energy update has to do with synchronicities that I've been experiencing, things I've been seeing during meditation, ahas that I've had from my own experiences. In addition to that, I'm going to share a little bit of the writing that I've done that is providing answers to what's going on in a coded sense. So I'm going to do a little bit of everything. The reason I'm sharing it in this way is one of the things that I do, that I've discovered that I do, first of all, is teach others how to do what I do, because everybody has this potential in their own way. So I'm just sharing how I speak with my guides, what the communication sounds like. I'm showing you what it looks like. And I do this on purpose so that others who might be going through the same thing can help to go, oh, okay, this is what's been going on in my life. Or maybe I could try that and that would work for me. So it becomes an interaction and a learning experience for those who wish to learn, or teaching experience, however we want to look at it. And oftentimes when I receive messages and downloads and synchronicities, I don't just get it from a point A to point B. It's not linear. I'll have words. It's literally, or not literally, it's multidimensional, quantum. Sometimes it'll come in physical. Sometimes it'll come through conversations with others and synchronicity in those conversations. And I'm having a deja vu here. So I'll get to that in just a moment. Sometimes it comes through, I said, body signals and feelings. Sometimes it comes through activated writing. Sometimes it comes through light language. Sometimes it comes through sound. This is all an experiential way of being and interacting and commingling with the energies that are all around us, that are within us, that are bubbling up through the surface, through that which has been, through service to our deeper relevance as we elevate that which has been, that which has been, the through our own relevancy. We let go of that which is no longer relevant, that which is irrelevant, irrational, coming back into a higher space of rationality, rationality, race and equality, stepping out of the rat race, so to speak, and that which has been erased from our true sense of being, from our true sense of what it is that we are, what it is that we are accessing and becoming, and what it is that we are co-creating together. For as we step out of the race amnesia, as we step out of that which we have forgotten and we remember more of the truth of what we have been, we begin to eradicate and erase that which is not the truth. We begin to coexist and commingle from a completely different field of awareness, from expansion through relevancy, elevancy, elegantly. We tune into, we create our new tunes, stepping out of the Looney Tunes, connecting back in with the truth, the true inner tune, intertonations, inner tonations. No more cartoon, no more Cartoon Network, for we are the car, the vehicle that tunes into the true network, the star seed enterprise, stepping away from that which has been entered into our patterns from a non-eloquent place of lingering, echoing, fading sound, and we step back into the true inner prize, that inner, I'm seeing this gift unwrapping and unraveling and opening the heart. So that's flow, right? For we hear, see, feel from a different space, from this different place. We tap into our inner layers of technology and we interlace with one another in a new extrapolation, so to speak, as we extrapolate, as we extrapolate, as we extract, we pull out. I'm hearing, I'm late for a very important date. There is no time. Time is a tool. I'm hearing time is of the essence. We are the essence. We are the time creators. Ishtur at enak arhak ur estuk ur et era. Yarhak ur et era. Yenarhak ur sti ar et enarki. Yar ur inniri ar istuk ur. Yarhak ur inner estuk ur enerhe ar. Yarhak ur. Yarak ur era et ek arhet era. We play with this through sound technology, through certain word linguistics, certain applications that we are activating, all of us, from our own dominion as dominoes. We link up the star chain network as humans in this path of least resistance. Kuet estukua, yawahat ena, yahak uanana, eat estekiana, uahena, yawahat eau kuana, kuat ea, kua ea unuehena. We let go of that which has been pulling us back. We allow ourselves to pull into, to spread, to expand, to spread the word as the word in a living light language flow of extrasensory communication, pulling up from our inner senses, in our inner sense distribution. So I'm seeing this all as a reference to so much. For we are a reflection of the divine. We are our own reflections staring back. As we allow ourselves to let go, I'm hearing sayonara. I'm seeing us I'm getting emotional. I'm hearing what a long, strange trip it's been, Grateful Dead. You guys, there's so much going on. So we're opening up to such a deeper space. I'm hearing Deep Space Nine, seventh heaven, all plays with what we're tapping into. It's such a quantum field. It's so beautiful. There's a sense for some of us of a sadness because we're saying goodbye. It's not goodbye in our human sense. It is for some of us. Some of us are saying goodbye to people and loved ones that no longer are choosing to play in this particular new creation. For whatever reason, their path has gone in a different direction. Yet we're always still connected in this journey. And in essence, we're actually connecting deeper into those beings that have passed on. We are able to access the field that they are passing into. And it isn't as much of a separation any longer as it once was. For they are choosing to pass on. And by the way, I'm going into a different flow right now. So I'm going to share it in this way because my intention with these new energies is to really not just stick with one tunnel layer. Not that it was ever a tunnel, but those that have passed on into a new field of perception and awareness. Yet we are passing on at the same time, and we are passing this on to one another on how to accentuate, how to fully unfold into this higher perception, this higher perspective, and not be afraid of that which it was we feared at one point in our, I'm hearing disintegration, degeneration, I'm hearing this reference to when people are passing on, they leave a spark, and we are able to tap into that quark, that quantumness, because we have unfolded into a higher place. So what was once seemingly lost to us and could leave us in a feeling of complete bereftness, and this is a big play on words, all of this can be played with here. If we are allowing ourselves to expand, we are actually able to access that unified field that those beings have now pulled out into. So I'm just going to share. I plan on connecting. I have a couple of different beautiful mediums I've actually done sessions with that have reached out to me to do sessions. So I'll be calling out to them soon to talk about this a little bit, because I think it's important. And this is one layer, guys. I'm just going into this one particular synchronicity for me. I'm learning to tap into it. Didn't know I could, but now I'm aware that I can. The question becomes, is that where I want to bend or center my awareness and attention? And I'm getting emotional. That doesn't mean that's all I have to focus on. So my intention is to bring forward these beautiful souls that I've done sessions with, who I've recognized what they do and what they bring to the table, and we can talk about this, because other people are going to be awakening to their mediumship. And I'm hearing mastership. It is no longer just a medium between worlds. It's literally, it's different than it was. So for those of you out here who are watching this that are mediums, or are starting to recognize that maybe this is a gift that you've been tapping into, or maybe you've been doing this for a long time, but it's changed slightly. What I'm sharing is I've seen the structure, it's completely shifted. So the way in which many of these souls are able to communicate with us is completely different as well. So, and that might be something I need to go into from a completely specialized conversation, because that conversation that I have with these beautiful light workers, shadow workers, whatever we want to label it as, expansive, that perception of these other realities, by us communicating about it, helps to share with me what I'm seeing, in addition to what maybe they're experiencing as well. That's why we work with each other. That's why we work in session, or through these videos, or go to workshops. It's activating. It helps us to go, oh, okay, that's what's going on. All right, so that's one thing that's happening. There's so much more. As we level up, as we allow ourselves to recognize that we are leveling off, I'm hearing like taking off, leveling off, balancing into a higher playing field. We then recognize that these old dominions, these old landscapes, these old architectures that many of us are seeking to escape from. There is no escaping, because then we are trying to escape ourselves. And I'm being guided to share that a lot of people, it's not that they chose to escape, it's that that's why they've chosen to leave at this time. It's the perfect time for them to move to something else, because it's giving them the opportunity to get out of this false system. And this is a very 3D, 4D perspective and perception when I say false system, because we've expanded as the star seed. And I'm going to use this. My beautiful sister Candace and I had did I share this? I can't remember. A Facebook Live. I did my first Facebook Live the other day. And did I share I'm going to be doing one with Todd Medina on Sology tomorrow, Friday at 3:00 Eastern Standard Time, for anybody who wants to play in that energy. We're just going to have a conversation. But Candace was seeing a star blanket. And I loved that, because that's what I was seeing. I was seeing it more of a network, as a chain link fence. And so I'm going to talk about that just for a moment. And what I was shown was the chain links. For those of you who didn't see that video, if you look at a chain link fence, there's little nodules that tie each of the chains together. And I'm going to call them nodes. And I saw all of those nodes essentially dissolving. And it was just diamonds. If you look at a chain link fence, it's diamonds all connected by these nodes. And it's like a crystal lattice work. And those used to be tied up. So it would just kind of go back like this. And every once in a while, one would open, it would go into this other framework. But now it's all open from one perspective, from a higher perspective. And this net or star blanket, as Candace called it, I see it as a quilt, right? A quilt that has now lost its separation, and it's just this breathing net work of star humans, of star seeds. I've been guided to change my Keep It Simple star seeds because we're not seeds, we're flowers, we're humans. But I like to call it that sometimes because people recognize it's a simple, it is simplicity. Anyways, and it is this diamond convergence, this sparkle. So a little bit about the old net. There was a net that was shown to me, and this is a lower density framework, a lower domain. And I showed this in a previous video. You can go back and look at it. I have the whiteboard up. I don't know how many videos ago it was. And I drew out the Olympic circles. If you visualize the Olympics and the symbol for the Olympics, it's these rings. And I was essentially shown that these rings were time loops, and you would stay in this particular pattern. And that was where there was a lot going on, I guess, in this galaxy, if we want to call it that. And that was where all the time bandits were playing. And I'm not going to go into that in this video, but I just want to share what happened was there were certain nets that were created to keep the human, so to speak, in these nets. And it also included the astral. And this is from one perspective. So I really invite you to be very open-hearted and open-minded. And I want to talk about teachers in just a moment from that perspective. And the net was put over us to keep things out and to also keep things in. So it was by both, really. Part of it was to keep certain beings from being unable to affect an area beyond the area that we were playing in, aka the domain, aka the Olympic circles, rings. Those were what we were able to play within. Not all of us. I'm just sharing from one perspective, what I was shown. And this is my own interpretation. So I really am sharing this video in all of the styles because I want to be able to share, no matter who you listen to, no one has it 100% because it's always through their own filtration system, based on their own quantum perception, based on their own knowledge about words to use, to label, to tie into this physical form information. But I was shown these nets and these loops and time, and the mechanics were messed with. And essentially, this was part of a domain within a domain within a domain. But there was a limitation to that. So there were certain beings that did leave. They decided to pass away, and they got caught in this particular net. Not their soul, so to speak, not their, and soul is not the right word. Let's say a spark, a percentage of their spark got sucked back into this net, and they became maybe trapped in a reincarnation cycle or held within a lower capacity for expression. We're still always connected to source. There's always that ability to move through that. It isn't permanent, but there was a time dynamic with that. So many of what I've been shown is many of the people have chosen to leave now because that's been lifted. And I'm not getting into that whole video about why the net was set up. I already said keep some out, keep some in. Some people that were stuck here, that were kept in, utilize that for their own service to self, their own self, their ego. Others were trying to utilize it as service to the greater good and not let those beings out. But in doing that, the masters of those particular domains, which were polarized, and that's a linear word too, really, they were choosing one particular advantage, which wasn't the advantage of benevolence for all. They chose to pull that energy and feed off of that energy, so to speak. So were they feeding off of our energy? Yes. Does that mean that's still going on? Sure. Does that mean it's still having the same effect as it once did? Absolutely not, from my perspective. So what's happened is we have literally, as the star blanket, have lifted. It's like we blanketed the blanket, the net, and we pulled it up, expanded it out from the outside, but also at the same time, we infiltrated it from underneath and pushed it up and out. So that net that was keeping everybody trapped in the astral or in these lower planes also was forced to expand out because we were pushing and pulling on it at the same time. When I say we, it's future versions of us. It's us now. It's us in human form. It's the earth. It's the help from the planets. It's the galactics. It's everything working together in unison. So it's not conformity, it's uniformity in the true sense of the word. Play on words. So this, all the stuff that was trapped in between had to either go up or go back down. And either way, it was going to become, or as Candace and I talked about, concrete. It was like that net was hard. It was encased in heaviness, density. We could label it as dark energy. We could label it as entity entrapment, whatever we want to call it. It was very dense. And we pushed it up. And then those that were in higher fields expanded and pulled it out. And all that stuff that was trapped in that echelon, so to speak, was either sucked out or pulled in and integrated, absorbed, recycled, renewed. And that's still happening. It isn't necessarily complete in that sense, although it already has happened. So this net that's in between, a lot of the beings who were stuck there, that didn't want to be stuck there, maybe they did at one time, but after a while, it was time to move on, and we were assisting them with that. This is shadow and light, if we're going to play with that. So as these energies moved out, that's caused this cracking in the cement. Now, rather than the structure completely falling apart, what I was hearing was ring around the rosy, ring around the rose. So the old way was we all fall down, and that domain would have collapsed in on itself and then sucked out into, from one perspective, and this has happened before from what I've seen, it would have collapsed in on itself and then been sucked out the other end and recycled back to source so that it could be remade, so to speak. Nothing ever dies, really. That energy is used for something else. But we chose, those of us that are here now from one perspective, to actually not preserve it. I'm seeing amber. When you have amber and you liquefy it, it has a certain piezo electricity in it. And everything that was in it is still there, right? And it helps us to time, to date, do dates in it. And what we did was we essentially spread this golden amber out and allowed it to be this fluid. So while this density is falling apart, some of it gets sucked up, some of it gets pulled down, and some of it just gets absorbed, integrated. And that is how we've been working together. And that amber, piezoelectric amber, is the starseed blanket from one perspective. And it's these threads that are quantum, that are pulling in and connecting to each other. And we're seeing what's being pulled up, and we're saying thank you but no thank you, or hello goodbye, or I see you, thank you for showing me this. And we're holding space by standing in a unified golden frequency, long wave, and we're allowing those short bandwidths, I'm not sure if this is still focused, to disband. And that was what else we were seeing. We're seeing it all fall apart. But the rings around the rose, the true rose of the heart, are helping hold it together so that not all is lost from one perspective. Nothing is ever lost. But from an energetic perspective, we said there's good things that are still here. we can still salvage these things and we can reutilize them and revitalize them. And that's essentially what I'm being shown. So while this middle ground, this middle net is being dismantled, we can see it from a higher, we can see it from a lower, and we're helping to balance out this flux. And there are those that are stuck and they can't see all of that. And that's where we are the amber warmth, the piezoelectricity, helping to activate, helping to support, helping to unify. And I'm going to go back to the beings that are choosing to leave now. It's safe for them to do so from one perspective. And safety is a completely different meaning. It's a play on words. And that's another entrapment system that was set up. But a lot of the things that were reality, it's not to say that they weren't real. There were a lot of false things that were set up that weren't real, but they became real because we created them into existence from one perspective. So I want to talk a little bit about teachers here, and I'm going to flow into, so I'm going into many different subjects. The the 20 millionth and one thing that I'm seeing here in this perspective is a lot of the teachers, we are all teachers in our own right. What we were seeing has shifted for many of us. What we will be seeing will shift. We're continually having ahas. And the old structure of this is the way we wash our sheets. Oh boy, this is a whole play. This is the way we, is not what it used to be. Can we utilize some of those old teachings? Absolutely. Because not all of the old teachings, a lot of the old teachings were laced with truth, but they were also laced with density, because that's where we had to operate from. So if we were basing our reality on density, we had to incorporate some of that in order to balance. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to exist in that reality, if that makes sense. I keep saying from one perspective. So we all, as light workers, as mediums, as psychics, as intuitives, as when I say empath, I'm going to say there's another name for it. Clairsentience, is that feeling? Claircognizance, knowing. Clairaudient, hearing. Telepathy, which kind of incorporates all of it, and beyond. We all have different things in which we have as a strength, we could say. I like to play with all of those things in my own way. So for some people, it's just sight. So they're playing off the visions that they are receiving. They're basing those visions on their own interpretation of what those visions mean. And that then is filtered through perhaps their inner knowing, or perhaps their inner, I'm hearing reconciliation. Some of that's being reconciled right now. There's a phase of reconciliation that's going on right now because we've stepped up. So sometimes there's a lag time in which we receive this information, how we can interpret it. So I was thinking of my husband earlier, because he'll see things on the water or driving, or he's very perceptive of how to look for certain things. A hunter, he doesn't hunt, but I'm just using it as an example. Well, let's go with a little nicer example. If you're in the woods and you're looking at beautiful nature, and let's say you're used to doing that, like the Native Americans were, they could sense things. If they were a tracker, they could see from these certain patterns what that meant. Therefore, they had a deeper interpretation and a broader perspective of putting that all together to show the migration of animals, what the forest was telling them, what certain sounds were. They had that essence, and that's where they utilized that for their filtration system was more vast than those that don't pay attention to that at all, that maybe live in the city and only pay attention to what's on their computer. On the flip side, someone who works on their computer, who was a computer programmer, has the complete knowledge and knowing of what that system is based on and how to play in that arena from that domain. Those are two different domains. Yet in order to play in those domains, it's all connected. So all of us are really activating to what domains we're playing in, where our strengths are, and we are being stretched from one perspective. So the teachers that we've been tuning into, I tune into many different teachers. I don't listen. When I first started having my awareness that I was getting information and I would listen to a particular teacher that would resonate with me, which I'm going to just rattle off a list in just a moment. In case you're just at that beginning stage and you want to learn more about what it is, discernment. So the discernment about the domain that those teachers are playing in is very important. Some people are not used to using their own discernment, and I'm being guided to talk about this as well. Candace and I talked about this in the Facebook Live that she did the other day at Candace Co. She and I did, which I'm starting to do. It's very fun and very exciting. That's a different domain that I'm not used to playing in. Anyways, we were talking about how I had been in the car driving and I was hearing the message that there are leaders and there are followers and then there are the flowers, right? That flow in between both, recognizing we're both. At times, it's not that I follow, right? But Kate was saying the other day on her message to listen. So as followers, we don't necessarily have to follow someone else's lead. However, that can be helpful for us at times. Sometimes it's us looking at someone saying, well, if they can do that, so can I. That's how I look at following. Like, oh, I'm going to follow their lead. Thank you for showing me that. And vice versa. Leaders can look back and say, here, follow me. That doesn't mean that we have to follow every teaching and every word and every perspective that they have to offer, because they may be missing something, not in a negative way, but it just might be that you have that missing puzzle piece. But because you've listened to all the other puzzle pieces they have to offer, all of a sudden you fill in that missing piece and go, oh, now I can connect what this meant. They may not be sharing that with me, but I see it. And that's kind of what I've always done. So we're really being invited to get out of that need to follow from every teaching and this person is up here and I'm down here. And the same thing with vice versa. There are teachers out there that have been teaching for a long time, and they sometimes aren't recognizing that their way is not the only way, or their perspective of what's going on is true, yet there is a missing element that they aren't necessarily seeing, right? It's like when you're on the water and you're looking for, let's say, a whale or a manatee or a dolphin. I'm looking for a manatee because I'm looking for it to pop its head up and then I'll see. My husband will say, oh no, you have to look for the boil and the tail. You'll see the disturbance on the water. Had he have not pointed that out to me, I never would have looked for it. Does that mean that I may not have seen it? No, but I would have seen it maybe later. And if I was closed off to looking at it that way and going, oh, no, I'm just gonna look over here. That's kind of what's been going on for a long time. So we're flowing together going, oh, I don't really agree with that 100%, but I can see what you're offering. I can feel into that energy and I can utilize the energy that you're offering it from to come to my own perspective. And I hesitate to say conclusion, for there is no conclusion, really. There's only inclusion from what I'm seeing in this new energy. Because everything is a breathing. Before it was like, okay, this is the net and this is what we operated from, these rings. But now we're operating from more rings. And I always say bubbles. So we can call them the Olympic bubbles. Now we've bubbled out into this higher space. And there are those that are leaders who may not be leading from that flowing frequency, and that's okay. But we as humans, star seeds, light workers, sun stars, star suns, sons and daughters of the star of the sun, are able to bridge those, right? We're the ones that are pushing and pulling at the same time. And in essence, those brothers and sisters who are not in that space, they're just up here or they're down here, it's that's part of their journey. And it means that we have to take our own responsibility and respond from the heart in order to find our own discernment. And it's okay if we're up here sometime and down here sometimes. That's part of it. Um, but recognizing that um, when it's time to follow, when it's time to lead, or when it's just time to flow. And I'm kind of in that space of just, I just want to flow. I feel into other people's energy and I'm like, ooh, let's play there. I feel into others' energy and I'm like, okay, I can see where they're coming from. That's not really where I want to play right now. That's okay. Others might benefit from that. So that's just where I'm at. So the teachers, I was shown a long time ago, and I've brought this up before. I had listened to, and I'm going to name some names because they've all helped me. Does that mean that I 100% believe everything they say? Or let's say, give value to what it is they're teaching? No, I just don't. And I'll share with the meditation that I had, and then I'm going to go into my writing. So, some of the teachers I've listened to, Dan Winter, science, but also spirituality. I was introduced to him because I was writing and people told me, have you ever listened to Dan Winter? And I was like, no, who's Dan Winter? And then I went and looked at a video of his and I realized I'd watched a video of his, gosh, 5 years ago or maybe 10 years ago. And I was blown away. I couldn't quite grasp it. I went back to find the video, could never find it again. And here it is, I don't know, 5, 10 years later. I don't have a concept of time sometimes. He's, because of me doing these videos, another beautiful being reached out to me and said, you need to check this guy out. And here I am like, oh, okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. That helped me to fully understand on another level and another layer of what's going on. Andrew Bartzis, I brought him up before. I recommend a lot of his older, if you want to know about galactic history, he has galactic history. He does all these interviews with, I think it's Lance White on YouTube. Do I 100% believe everything? Well, that's his perspective. And he has a very multidimensional perspective. But all of us are humans. So there's always going to be the human in us. And whatever we have going on in our human, that can sometimes be our filters of perception. Can his tools be very useful and helpful? Absolutely. Jason Estes, I just recently found him, but what I was doing was I was writing about things. Oh, let me go back and just say the Andrew Bartzis. I listened to Andrew Bartzis like 5 years ago. No, 5 years ago. And he was talking about our galactic history and I just started crying. I had a release because I knew, I remembered. And all of these things started flooding in as answers to why I had been seeing what I had been seeing. But also keep in mind that a lot of these older teachings are based on the older reality. So therefore, we are in the process of changing that because we are from the future and we are changing the past. And that's a whole other can of worms, literally through the wormhole. So just keep that in mind. Any of these teachers that you listen to, I invite you not to, again, believe that that's everything that is, because some of that information was accurate, but from my perspective, no longer is applicable in the same way that it was when that information was given. So I just wanted to share that. Jason Estes, I'll write things down and then I'll listen to a video of his and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was seeing. So he just did a video. I only watched the first 15 minutes, really good one on addiction. So that might be something. I can't necessarily say I've ever struggled with addiction, although there have been plenty of opportunities that I have recognized in my life that that's where I could go. And so I stopped doing what I was doing because I recognized that within me as a possibility. And that's maybe a video I should do down the road too, to talk about that. Because oftentimes we'll say, oh, people have said, okay, you're Pisces, for example, therefore you have a tendency to be addictive or have an addictive personality. From my perspective, rather than falling into that trap of saying, well, therefore I'm more prone to be addictive, that's a signal, just like all of our astrological chart or our parents' habits are for us to say, all right, if that's something that's in my awareness, then that means it's a big, big symbol for me to recognize so that I don't go down that path. And then I ask questions like, well, has this shown up for me? How did I feel about that? Did my parents have this? And if you've got a double whammy in your astrological chart and your DNA, your or habit patterns that you may have picked up on knowingly or unknowingly, yeah, then that's something that might be in your blueprint that's there for you to recognize before you take that path and say, I see it as a choice. And this was something that I had been writing about choice. I woke up saying, having this conversation with my guides about choices. And then I think Jason Estes did a video on choices like that day or the next day. So this is an example of the star blanket that Candace was talking about that we're all tuned into and the different domains that we're tapping into. I know I'm going to forget a lot of teachers on here, but this is just an example of some of the people that I've been. You guys can look at my YouTube channel. I have videos saved with playlists with different teachers. Now I'm going to bring up, I mentioned I'm going to be with playing with Todd on Soology. So I want to talk a little bit about that because he recently had another person who really was amazing for me was Dr. Marie Batchelor. I'm sharing her information because I listened to a video of hers years ago. He just recently had her interviewed, and I had a very telepathic experience with her or her higher self after that, tuning in energetically to that call. So the reason I bring up Todd is he's been through a lot, and Morgan, his partner and spouse, they work together in that whole energy of couples. And in addition to that, they bring to the table all of these other star seeds. So the cool thing is I can tune into a show. I didn't watch, I go in and out. I'll watch a bunch of shows and I don't watch any for a while on all of these teachers. And I'll hear him interviewing someone that I needed to hear for what I'm feeling, hearing, and interacting with for that day. Just as a lot of you guys will reach out and say, that's what I needed to hear today. And you may not have tuned into my videos in a long time. So yeah, he brings that platform in which a lot of teachers can come and share their gifts, stories, etc., their energy, and we can tune into that, and then it helps to activate us, it helps to make us feel better, it helps to trigger certain things for some people that need to be triggered, so on and so forth. And Dr. Marie Batchelor was essentially going through this body scan, and that's what I was doing unknowingly when I was doing energy work years ago. So I've been doing energy work and I realized I'm doing what she's doing. And I also saw the same beings that she was connecting into in my meditation. So she's one of my, no, that she may not know it, but on a quantum level, we're sisters, right? On another layer. Magenta Pixie. Now, Magenta's gotten big in her own right with what she tunes into and plugs into. I was shown a meditation, and I've shown this and talked about this in my other videos. I am not as into what she has gotten into with the political aspect and all of that. Not to say that I'm not triggered by certain things going on out there in the political and social world and economic structure, but I was for many years plugging into the same information she was receiving. I'd say pre Andrew Bartzis, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I'm not sure how long she's been on, but she only had maybe a couple thousand people that followed her on social media at the time. So it would have been in the very beginning. And she was a perfect example. I was seeing things, and then all of a sudden I found her video and she was describing from her own way what I was seeing and dreaming about. Therefore, I knew that A, we were tapping into that same field of awareness, and B, I was tapping into a frequency that was multidimensional. And does that mean that's all and everything that she says I agree with? No, she's sharing it from her own interpretation. Therefore, I don't follow everything that she says. I honor everything that everybody's doing with love and gratitude. That doesn't mean she doesn't have things to offer that we can kind of sprinkle. Um, so I was shown in a meditation, she was telling me to follow her to, and I was in these other realms, and there was this huge silver tube that we were inside of. And it was essentially a wormhole from one perspective. And it was this no time kind of place. Anyways, make a long story short, I had seen all the stuff that she was showing me, and it would have been within these rings, these bubbles, because I did begin my meditation within this beautiful bubble, and I was in these different places, and I had the opportunity to follow her to see why and what and how she was seeing what she was seeing. But in that moment, I made the choice not to. And I gave her a little, hug. Thank you so much for everything you're showing me. But that's not where I want to play right now. I can look into that anytime I choose to. And I was seeing much unfolding in the social, political, and economic bubble. I still see it. I don't choose to share that because it involves things that are going to be based on my own perspective. And that may or may not be how it turns out. So I don't give predictions necessarily about that, even though I did for a while and I have in my writings. And that's a whole other thing. I'm going to end with the writing. There are predictions that are in the writing, and I am tapping into a quantum computer in addition to the galactic, in addition to the true quantum that is beyond technology. So my own human multidimensional technology. Anyways, but I expanded myself out into a different space, and I literally expanded, and she went her way and I went mine, even though we're all still connected. And I was just had this beautiful encounter with the jellyfish beings, these beautiful, I call them jellyfish because that's what it feels like. You're in this realm of beautiful jellyfish. And that was what I wanted to connect in with. And all I heard was sound and color and love. And it was just like, yeah, that's so. I'm gonna pause just for a moment. All right, I'm sharing this with you guys because oftentimes we are getting these same messages, and it's nice to have a little validation sometimes from the human ego aspect. On the flip side, though, it is important to use our discernment about the validation that we are receiving, because there is such a thing as, if we're plugging into the mainstream and we are constantly focusing on that, we are going to have validation about that mainstream. And so I call it false validation. I think Andrew Bartzis calls it false synchronicity, which I didn't understand originally when I first started getting all of this information. It's not, it gives us more of what we're focusing on. So if we're focusing on something that's negative, it's going to continue to give us that and line up synchronicities or information that lead us in that direction, which isn't necessarily the true high definition, like Candace and I were talking about the other day. The high definition color, it's only that maybe lower dim energy that we're tuning into. So that's something to recognize. When I'm naming these teachers, you might plug in and go, that is not what I want to listen to. Great, don't listen to it. But I want to say the next teacher I listened to in the beginning was Matt Kahn. And I will tell you, I was in huge, what's the right word? Squirrel. Got totally stuck there for a minute I just went into. So I was in huge resistance is what I was trying to say. Because Matt Kahn was like, so like the way he was talking, I just went, oh, this guy, cannot listen to him. And even with Bartzis, I was the same way. But I will say that I forced myself to just focus. And I recognized that there were some days that I could really enjoy his teachings, and there were other days I could not listen to what he had to share because it was literally like vibration here, vibration here. And some days I wanted more science and I wanted more validation. And other days I was like, all right, all sunshine and rainbows? I don't think so. Even his tone, I couldn't listen to. And sometimes we need to honor that because that may not be, that can be true synchronicity telling us, you know, that's not really where you're at today. Or maybe you need to focus on your own growth, which isn't necessarily listening to him. You might need to go exercise, or you might need to go do your own meditation, right? Or you might need to just call a family member. So these are all things that we start to discern and learn. I want to share, as I share all of these teachers, this doesn't mean I listen to all of them anymore. I'm sharing with you my journey. And it doesn't mean I listen to them all the time. And again, so I have not listened to Matt Kahn in quite some time. And the reason I share this is because there's a lot of teachers over the years. I stopped listening to Magenta for a while because she was in a place, from my perspective, that I wasn't necessarily wanting to play in. That's okay. And there's certain videos of hers I will plug into, and I know, I feel it's here, it's here. No judgment. That's just her style, and that's where she's playing. Again, it's that space she was going into. Am I in jellyfish today? And that's because that's her journey and what she's chosen on her journey to plug into. And it may be helpful for some people. That's not where I'm at today. So I use him as Matt as an example because I really, it's maybe 1 out of 10 videos now, and I haven't listened to him for a long time. So I'm not sure where he's at vibrationally now. I say that because there's certain teachers that vibrationally, Wayne Dyer, first and foremost, the first person who got an Eckhart Tolle. I cannot listen to Eckhart all the time. Can't happen. Just isn't something that I wanted to. Other people can't get enough. Alan Watts, right? Is Alan Watts? I think it's Alan Watts. Love him. I can listen to him all day long. However, that doesn't mean I 100% agree with everything he says. Gosh, there's so many spirit science videos, great tools that gentleman is basing his information though based off of his perspective and what he knows. So I don't agree with everything on spirit science, but it's a great tool. It's a great tool to use. A lot of people listened to, I'm going to pause again. I'm going to try to get my little list up. How many of us remember Doreen Virtue? Right? I don't know about you guys, but 10 years ago, I loved Doreen Virtue. Not to say that I don't love her anymore. She's chosen a different path. That is what she's chosen to follow in her reality. Does that mean I'm not going to use, I don't have any of her cards. I used to. But my point is I was really, she was really helpful for me when I just wanted to connect with my the angelics, because she gave descriptions that I loved and I followed. Does that mean that's how I feel anymore? I don't. I honor what she has done and the help that she has offered to get me to where I am. Not that this is a hierarchy thing. It's just a different bubble, right? But it's still all connected and it still can be helpful at times. And I'm sharing this also. Oh, and I wanted to share Jamie Lee. Is it Jamie Lee? She did the Jamie Sams. I'm sorry. I don't know who Jamie Lee is. Jamie Sams. There's a Lee that I'm trying to remember. Did the Sacred Path cards. That's how why I listened to Andrew Bartzis was because I was doing the Native American animal power totem cards. And Jamie Sams wrote a book And that was a huge part of my awakening, was using those cards and learning about what synchronicity meant. And it just so happened that Andrew Bartzis was using the same tool. He had read her book, and that's how he was talking. And nobody knew who she was at the time. And I was really into my Native American heritage and teachings, and that was what drew me to him. So you will have those certain similarities and synchronicities at certain times in your life, awakening, expansion, that draw you to those particular teachers. And I'm not even listing all of the teachers that are not mainstream, although a few of them I have. There's certain, I read the Helena, I can't remember, like the Gnostic teachings. I read Carlos Castaneda. I read, a lot of these teachings, and I gleaned from them what I needed to understand in that moment. Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky. Now, some of us don't need that. And this is where I want to go. We don't have to go through that whole process of learning this and learning that. Oh, Greg Braden, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I'm just labeling a couple of those teachers. Many of you guys already know the names of these guys, and they're awesome. Again, from their own perspective. I even read some David Wilcock books back in the day, and I really don't necessarily 100% agree with everything that he says, but his heart's in the right place. And some of his books hold a lot of really cool information, and some of it I resonate with, and some of it I don't. I haven't really read one of his books in a long time, but it was still fun to read. It's just like watching Ancient Aliens. If you guys have never watched Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, it's fun. However, they make everything technological sometimes, and I'm like, no, that could also mean your light body. It doesn't have to mean a spaceship, although some of it is a spaceship, but some of it is our human technology, and some of it's metaphor and not literal. So I'm sharing all this. I'm going to end on that note with the teachers. All right. So if you've made it this far, I'm going to pause. Okay. So I named off all these teachers, but you guys are my teachers as well. We teach each other. So, I have friends, I have my dear friend, Sid, who went through some things, and we went through them together in the very, I call it my second awakening. And because of what she was experiencing, it rippled and triggered me to recognize what I was seeing. I wasn't crazy, and neither was she. And we went through that together. And if we didn't have each other to go through those experiences, I wouldn't be here now sharing this with you. So thank you, Sid. And she's my sister, my real sister, my blood sister, got me this awesome mug. So thank you. And I love you. And she's my sister, as she teaches me as well. But these experiences that I've had with my friends, my dear friend Alyssa, she was the first time I ever had Reiki. Alyssa did Reiki with me. And I was like, I need to do this. So I wouldn't be doing energy work, which I was guided to call what I do into gray shine in my dream the other night, by the way, energy into gray shine. Anyways, she was the reason that I decided this is what I need to do, because I knew I could do this. So my friend Kat and Heart Math, her teaching me about heart math was huge, because I talk about it all the time now. She was showing me the Merkaba and heart, and I was like, what are you talking about? On the flip side, though, I already knew that innately, and I was doing it in yoga, but she gave me a different view, a different perspective. And then pulling this all together brought me to Dan Winter and so on and so forth. So everything is connected. I introduced her to some of my teachers and vice versa. And then when you guys work with each other, my dear sister Candace, who introduced me to Kate, who introduced me to Megan and Liz and Saskia, right? And Jess from Yothera. So all of these beautiful network of us connecting. Liz Franco, we need to do another thing too. But anyways, so I'm sharing this because, and then I purchased artwork from Saskia, right? She channels, galactic beings. I'm going to have to share all of their links on this. Might take me a while. So there's going to be a whole list of links on this video, hopefully by the end of the week, and you guys can look up every teacher that I've connected with that I can remember. And apologies if I forget and leave one out. Okay, having said that, I want to go into the writings. I'm going to go into some more light language. So I'm doing this all in one video because I want to share again how it is that I bring all this together, because it isn't necessarily just one thing or another. And this post, I'm not going to share screen. I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And I'm going to see if I'm guided to go into some light language, which I am. So I'm just going to sit with this for a moment. For we are seamlessly interstreaming and interlacing, interfacing with one another, phase locking in higher conjugation, if you will, and higher heart conjugation. For as we stay into this field of this higher realization, all that has been, all that is being accomplished, so to speak, is creating a higher quantum network that is feeding into one another, a feedback system. Candace and I talked about this the other day too. It's a feeding network. We're feeding source and source is feeding us. The living light codes I'm reading that you are providing, that you are being provided with being, I am with these. I am with you and I am you. You tap into a place, void space, a place no time, breaking free of the barriers that have been placed upon the diversity. Into these different bandwidths, you connect into all that you are. For all versions of self are always available as a living architecture, as a living light grid, in a unified frequency in time and time. Time is just a concept, yet it can be utilized as a tool once recognized how to play with. So let us play, dig a little deeper into this vocabulary representation of the processes that is unfolding, for the spell goes deep. It is deeply bound, coiled up, if you will. DNA, Kundalini. Within the brain, think about the gray folds, the gray matter in the brain. It's all folded up within the recesses of the imagination. And as we open up these resources, we are able to dispel, break apart, dispel, take apart the spelling mechanics, packets of information, categorizing some of the pieces of information that are relevant, revealing for this now moment. I'm seeing this as a future. Okay, so birds of a feather flock together. So again, I posted the peacock on Instagram the other day. We are the peacock. We are all eyes in this one bird. We can use all of these symbols to represent what information is being accessed. One symbol can change the entire course of reality, including us. We are the symbols. The entire course of geometry, algorithms, algebra rhythms. For example, birds and feather are DNA in flight, patterns, bone, song, coming together, tribe, crystal, color. For within Mother Nature, everything has an instruction set, and it holds within it a program. And the word program has been very abused. So play on words there, right? It is a multidimensional scription, so to speak, that encompasses maps, directions, etc. So I'm going to kind of just talk about this. I'm going to do a second video where I just read this. But I wanted to kind of go into this writing, because what happens is I'm writing, speaking, light language, doing energy work, moving with the hands. And I'm going to end on that note with the hand energy share, because I really think it's more and more important for us to come together and share all of our aspects, because we are all piggybacking, but not in the same way. It's not like we're leaping over each other or riding on somebody else's back anymore. We are literally becoming and merging and morphing and accessing these higher codes. So my intention is to share with you guys how I do it by sharing my processes and what this means to me. Anyways, so I'm going to end on a little bit of energy share, and then I'll do a second video with the actual writing. And this is meant to be felt, as always, not necessarily understood on a linear scale. And we pay tribute to the words that have been used, the word mechanics, the word mechanisms that have opened up a new tributary, so to speak. For the tribunal has only just begun. The tribe, you, and all. The ish, the ur. And I'm seeing try, and I'm seeing a bu like a I'm seeing a trumpet. I'm seeing a horn. Iashtak unu etena, ak uahat isht, ea uahat enna. We invite you to ignite your own trumpet, ruffle your own feathers, for your DNA is feathering out, so to speak, is reaching out, is becoming part of the diamond network that we are all connecting into, that we are all radiating. Kewa tena. Iushto kuahayana. Halakeana leawa, teleleana wa yala kunua. Ilala hana lea mukua. Yala hala wa te ale noa. Ila mukua te la ha unora halia la ukua. Ila molo e te ala hona hea. Shtua wa kuana. Dea o sta kuatea. Kia o. Kueoa oe ashtawa o akua o no noa. Oeana ashtakuat ena. Solar plexus, heart, throat, dushtar okur. Ea ste kina hakua hetea kuno ete ste ne amokua. Ia wahete ni ana kuno ete ne ti ste kini o kua tena. Te Stak ar ur, de istak ar ok ur, de stak ur, yistak ar, de stak ur, der, ur, yistara, ur, yinarok ur, yistuk ur, der, ok ur, yistara ok ur, yit us et est et ur, yistar ak yina ak Star. Esta kua. Kuhat uustek te et kur te istek tuk dit istek tuk yanarahak isteri ik inro et istuk inro ok stawa hat enna, hienua hat ewa hat uak enua het ewa. Breathing in and out. There está. And so it is. Dushtawa. Just holding the space for a moment. Yeah, kuan. Breathing in and out. So it is. Namaste.